We will now proceed to act on the committee report for House File 2. Is there any discussion? Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. And members, House File 2 establishes a state-operated paid family and medical leave program paid for by new taxes on employers and employees. We know this bill has already had 5 hearings in different finance committees, but there has not been a fiscal note, wow, a fiscal note for any of those hearings. For any members of the public watching, fiscal notes are the document that we get that shows what a bill costs, which agencies those costs will be to. In past sessions, fiscal notes for a bill nearly identical to this showed costs to DEED, the Department of Human Services, DOLI, MMB, the Supreme Court, the legislature, and the University of Minnesota. It explained that this program would require over 300 new full-time employees in state government. The fiscal note showed around $400 million in new state spending each year. We have none of that information yet for this year's bill. We don't know if this bill impacts more or fewer agencies. We don't know if the cost of the bill will be higher or lower. We don't know if the state will need to hire more or fewer employees to operate the program. So let's be clear. Finance committees cannot fully discuss the financial impacts of bills without fiscal notes. There is no way the Workforce Development Committee, which heard the bill on January 25th, could fully vet the impacts of this bill on DEED. There's no way the Judiciary Finance Committee, which heard the bill on January 31st, could fully vet the bill with knowing the impact to the courts. And there's no way the Labor and Industry Finance Committee, which heard the bill on February 7th, could fully vet the bill without knowing the impact to the Department of Labor and Industry. They simply don't have all of the information to discuss. This session we've been moving at lightning speed, and I know my friends across the aisle seem to be thrilled about that. But when we move that fast, we make mistakes. We miss problems with bills, and it's disrespectful to our legislative process and disrespectful to the public. Putting our policy differences aside, and we definitely disagree plenty about the policy of this bill and how it will negatively impact Minnesota businesses, we need to follow the process that this body has used for decades. There are more than 3 months left in this session. There's enough time to fully vet House File 2 and all of the bills that are moving this session. There's enough time to discuss both the financial and the policy impacts of all of the legislation moving and still get it done before we adjourn in May. We need to object to this committee report and send it back to the Labor and Industry Finance Committee. This bill should not continue moving at lightning speed while members don't have all of the information. I would request that members vote no on adopting this committee report.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also want to address this issue. This massive workforce mandate is coming at us, and it's huge, it's complex, it's supposed to fit every single business in the state of Minnesota. It's going to affect our counties, our cities, our nonprofits, everybody that has an employee. This is a big deal. I'm honored to be the ranking member on the House Workforce Committee, along with Chair Zhang. We had a robust conversation about this bill late in January, and we did not have enough time to kind of set this stage up. Also, of course, the fiscal note was not present. Commissioner Grove was there, gave us a 3-4 minute overview of how great this bill was, but we weren't able to ask him questions because the testifiers kind of took up most of that time, and the commissioner had to leave that meeting. He wasn't around for that. My question would be this simply, and Madam Speaker, if I could ask Representative Zhang for a question, to yield to a question.
He will yield. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to Chair Zhang, this is something, again, I appreciated your work in committee that day. As I mentioned, this is the most important bill that our committee can hear this year. It's tough to get a lot of things worked through with 90 minutes, and you did actually extend it another 10 minutes for us, which I appreciate that. Now, if we have a fiscal note, Chair Zhang, and if this new fiscal note that will come out, if it has part of our jurisdiction that hits the Workforce Committee, Chair Zhang, are you able to commit that we're going to send it back to our committee if it does, in fact, touch our jurisdiction with this important bill?
The member from Ramsey, Representative Zhang.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Lead Baker, for that question. I will have a conversation with the author of the bill and you about that as we proceed.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Chair Zhang. I hope that the conversation goes better. A lot of us are having a tough time getting to the author of the bill to have a meeting and to try to talk about some of these things. I do have one later this week, and I appreciate Representative Richardson allowing us to try to get a few minutes during committee to try to talk about this. But it has been a challenge to reach out and get discussions about this important bill. So again, I heard you say you're going to talk to the author about this, but it's not the author's responsibility, Chair Zhang. It's your responsibility as the chair. It's my responsibility as the ranking member to make sure our committee work is done right. And I really hope that you take my advice on this, and I hope that we can bring it back to our committee. If it affects our jurisdiction on that bill, I really hope that we do the right thing and do this. So members, this is important discussion. This is how we write good legislation, is to vet it properly in a finance committee, and everywhere that finance committee touches that bill, we have to address this. So I'm going to count on the good chair to make sure he does the right thing and have this come back if it does indeed touch our department there, so our committee. So appreciate that. I look forward to further conversation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman and members. And we, too, heard House File 2 and Judiciary, where I'm the Republican lead. And we heard it on January 31st. We debated the bill for about 40 minutes. And the bill's author, I talked to her prior to the hearing, and she was kind enough to take a small provision amendment that provided some limited protections for employers who act in good faith. But members, looking at the fiscal note from this bill last year, there were costs to the judiciary, and I'm concerned that the fiscal note this session will be similar to the one last year, and it will have impacts to the court. And I'm wondering if Chair Becker-Finn would yield to a question, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. And Chair Becker-Finn, same question that was asked before of Chair Zhang. Just wondering if the fiscal note, when and if there is a cost to the judiciary, will you be asking for the bill to come back to your committee so that we can discuss the fiscal impact?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Speaker. As a chair, it depends. We'd have to take a look at it, and there are all kinds of factors that go into the decisions that I make as a chair. But thank you for asking.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. So Representative Becker-Finn, if she would continue to yield.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you. So Representative Becker-Finn, if the fiscal note shows at least the amount that it did last time, will you be bringing it back to the Judiciary Committee?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Speaker. Again, it depends. There are a lot of factors that go into whether I call something back to my committee or not.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. If she would continue to yield.
Hold on just a second. Representative Becker-Finn, will you yield to another question? She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. And Representative Chair Becker-Finn, what factor would kind of put you over the top on whether to hear it again in the committee?
Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Speaker. Again, it depends. There are a lot of different factors that go into the choices that you make as a chair. I couldn't speak to just one factor or another. You never know what's going to happen. We kind of have to look at a lot of things and weigh what makes the most sense for our committee.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman and Representative Becker-Finn. I'm sorry we can't get any more concrete answers than what we're getting from the chairs of these committees. We have a lot of really important and big bills that have been passing through at the speed of light, and many of them are not well vetted. Some of them are traveling through this process, the committee process, without fiscal notes, which is, in my opinion, very irresponsible. I can see maybe one committee or two waiting for that fiscal note, but when you continue to push these fiscal notes through each committee without having, or when you're processing these bills through committee with no fiscal notes, it is the responsible thing to do is to bring them back to those committees once the fiscal note arrives, if there is a fiscal cost in that committee's purview. And so I'm really sorry that we can't get a more concrete answer that yes, definitely, we will be bringing this back to the Judiciary Committee or the Workforce Committee or whatever committee is touched, this bill will be touching. It's disappointing that we can't get a concrete answer out of our committee chairs because they have the authority to say one way or the other on the floor right now, today, that yes, if there's a fiscal cost to the Judiciary Committee, I have the authority as chair, yes, most definitely we'll be bringing it back to the committee, even if it's for 5 minutes. Thank you, members.
The member from Rice, Representative Daniels.
Thank you, Speaker and members. We heard House File 2 in our Children and Families Committees on February 2nd, and we did not have a fiscal note either. Because of that issue, we made a motion to the bill, which failed. However, our concerns, we're still fast-tracking the bill without having the facts about the bill to discuss it. Looking for the fiscal note from the similar bill that was discussed last season, there were costs to the Department of Human Services related to CCAP. My concern was the fiscal note this session probably would be similar cost to the impact of CCAP. And yet we've vetted in children and families, and I would ask Chair Pinto if he would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative Daniels.
Representative Pinto, would you commit to that when we have a fiscal note that shows a cost for DHS related to CCAP, which is within our committee's jurisdiction, would you demand the bill come back to our committee so we can further discuss it?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm definitely not in the usual position of demanding things of the Speaker or of the body, Representative Daniels. I remember your motion to table, and I remember that it came after I had actually allocated twice as much time for that hearing of that bill than we had talked about and had been committed to members, and actually went twice as long at that point. Suddenly that came that motion to table. Representative Daniels, I'm certainly open to, well, we'll see where things go, but it was not my understanding that there'd be any fiscal impact in our committee, and I'll keep an eye on where things go, but I'm not at this time prepared to make any sort of commitments. Representative Daniels.
Representative Daniels.
Thank you, Chair Pinto, for that response. I just really hope you'd give us a definite answer. This is a big bill. I've talked to numerous people in my district, and this will affect everybody from government to schools to restaurants to you name it. And it's a huge ask. It's a tax increase. The bill's not very well thought out. That reduces it down to one person for that to take effect. So I would just strongly reconsider bringing these bills back so they can be discussed again, because it has such a large impact on the state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Madam Speaker and members, we too heard House File 2 in Labor and Industry on last Tuesday, the 7th. We had several amendments that unfortunately the chair and the rest of the Democrats on the committee rejected. One particularly amendment we thought was very important, and I probably think that you'll agree with me. It was an amendment that would have this program audited within a year. You're probably familiar with MnSure, MnLARS, Southwest Light Rail, et cetera, that cost, they were very big bills and cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and we had them audited Thanks be to God we had them audited, but we found some great deficiencies. But unfortunately, they rejected, the Labor and Industry Committee rejected the auditing that we wanted to ensure to make sure this paid family sick leave will do exactly what you want it to do. It's going to be one of the largest bills that we'll see in this committee or in this session. And it's completely irresponsible to bring such a bill with no fiscal note whatsoever. Members, I want to pledge to you, as long as I sit in this body, I will not bring a bill to you and force or ask you to vote for a bill that has no fiscal note. That is one of the most irresponsible things to do. Let's say you're going to build a house. You have a builder coming in, and he's going to build a house, and he's not even going to tell you what it's going to cost. You just say, build away, I'll pay you when it's done. That is a stupid thing to do, and it's irresponsible. So members, you new members that are here, both on our side and your side, as you continue to see these bills with no fiscal note, don't vote for them. It's an irresponsible thing to do. Last year during Labor and Committee, I was on that as well, we had a fiscal note then. It's a new bill this year, but it would have over 300 new full-time employees. We know it's going to be a great cost. It's going to be a great cost, Representative Nelson, to the Department of Labor and Industry. That's our committee. It's a finance committee. Imagine bringing a bill to a finance committee and you have no cost. And now it's been through 4 or 5 committees and still no fiscal note. I heard over the weekend from a senator that there are some bills going to the governor's office and he's signing them, not knowing what it cost. Can you imagine such a thing? It's ludicrous. So I would like, Chair Nelson, I see you're back on the House floor. Thanks for coming back when I pulled you out of the restroom there. Would you yield for a question, please?
Representative Nelson will yield. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, I didn't pull him from there. I just told him I was going to ask him a question.
Way too much information,
Yeah.
Representative McDonald.
All right. Well, Representative Nelson, would you commit to our group, and to be the responsible one, that once it has a fiscal note, heaven forbid, I think we'll have a fiscal note before it gets out of all the committees, would you commit to having it come back to our committee so we can discuss it and share with the rest of the committee members the fiscal note?
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative McDonald. I'm not going to make any commitments because I don't know what the fiscal note's going to say. I don't know what it's going to do. We heard it in our committee and passed it on to the next committee that it's being moved here to another finance committee. And hopefully before it gets to the floor here, it does have a fiscal note attached to it.
Representative McDonald.
Madam Speaker, did you hear that? Now, first of all, I do want to say that Representative Nelson is a really good chairman. He gives us ample time to ask questions. He doesn't hurry us up. We've heard the debate last week that some of the committee hearings they have limited time to discuss, especially the minority. But I want to give you a compliment, Representative Nelson, because you certainly are very respectful to the minority and give us ample time to ask questions and give our amendments. But did you hear that? He says he's not going to commit to something in which he doesn't know about with the fiscal note. Well, Representative Nelson, that's just irresponsible. That's silly to say you can't commit because you don't know what the fiscal note would do or say. Think about that. Think about the words we use. I can't commit to a fiscal note because we don't know what it'll say or do. Isn't that our responsibility? So, Representative Nelson, I know you're a good man and you'll do the right fiscal, responsible thing, and perhaps we'll see a physical fiscal note someday in committee. So, members, I appreciate your listening to a very important discussion about the cost of your bill. The cost that you're going to give to counties, cities, schools, unions, businesses, and every employee in the state of Minnesota. Think about it, Madam Chair.
Yep, and members, just please keep in mind to debate the movement of the bill or not, and not the particular personalities involved in the movement of the bill. The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I have been on the State Government Finance Committee since I got here, and in a giant nerdy way, it's really one of my favorite committees, and because it touches so many different areas of the fiscal impacts here in our state. And when this bill came to committee, it was Thursday of last week. I asked several questions, my members asked several questions, and I will give the chair credit for allowing us to have as good a discussion as time allowed because it was a busy day. But when we brought to the chair's attention that there was not a fiscal note, and how we had grave concerns over that. And there are many costs that are loaded into the bill, namely a either heavily customized or completely bespoke piece of software, which causes us concern. Here in the state of Minnesota, we don't have the best track record when we go to create software. There are a great many costs that roll up under our committee, and really our committee has a huge area of jurisdiction over many of the things that are in this bill. And we offered amendments, and none of them were taken. We were told, well, we can talk about that, but we would like to know when we might be able to talk about that. And all we really want to be able to do is to have an informed conversation around the bill. Now, the funny thing is, many of you in this chamber had helped me support something I did over the weekend. I did a polar plunge, and I was at the polar plunge, and a member of my community who is a DFLer had gotten my weekly update. And before we jumped in, because I wasn't sticking around to talk while I was wet coming out of the freezing water, but they said, Jim, I have a question for you about your weekly update. You said that the bill that came through committee had no fiscal note. What does that mean? And I thought, wow, that's a great question. And I said, well, a fiscal note is, and I have this one from last year, and Madam Speaker, this is not a prop, this is just a fiscal note from last year. This is the last time we had it, and it's a 10-figure impact to the state of Minnesota. There's a lot of money that's loaded into this, and I told this person that stopped me as we were preparing to jump, I said, well, a fiscal note helps legislators and the public see what the potential fiscal impact of something will be when a bill goes into law. And it helps us as legislators make informed decisions as to whether or not we are going to pass that into law or vote against it so it does not pass into law. And what this does is, as the representative of the people of 48A, it gives me the insight as to what's going to be the impact on the voter and the taxpayer. And I said, we don't have that. Now, mind you, this is a Carver County DFLer, and I won't say the words that they said, but suffice to say that they thought it was a little nuts. They may have had words that started with other letters of the language, or the alphabet, but they thought this is not responsible government. And that's just the question. It is not responsible government. So I will ask if the chair would yield, Madam Speaker.
Representative Cleavorn will yield. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker Hortman. Chair Cleavorn, you and I have a good working relationship. We meet as often as the week offers us, and we text back and forth in committee. But would you commit to, once we have the fiscal note, to call this back into committee, which is largely a huge area of the fiscal impact of this bill? Would you commit to call this back into committee so that our committee members may have an informed conversation about the cost to our committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction for a lot of this? Would you commit to that?
Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What I would say to you, Madam Speaker, is that without reading the fiscal note, I have no idea as to what the impact on our jurisdiction would be. While this bill does reach many places in state government, Madam Speaker, it is not coming out of the state government budget. It is dealing with costs that in the usual course of business, one agency may bill to another agency. So at this moment, without reading the fiscal note, I'm not jumping into what I would or would not do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Nash.
Well, Madam Speaker, I guess I had asked the question. I don't think the Speaker had asked the question. I would really hope to have the answer addressed to me.
Representative Nash, there's the custom and usage of the House as you address the presiding officer. But well, Representative Nash.
Madam Speaker, well, I think Representative Cleavorn made the point exactly. We don't know. But what we do know is that there will be software that gets created. That's Minute. That's in our purview. There will be things for Deed and Dolly, and those come in our committee. There are many instances in this bill that if you were to pull a commissioner or a chair aside and said, hey, does this committee roll up under your, does this area roll up under your committee? The answer would be, well, yes, it does. And I don't feel like I quite have everyone's attention, Madam Speaker, if we could quiet down the chamber.
Members, please take your conversations off of the House floor. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's the point. That's the point that we're trying to make here. that this is a bill that touches a lot of committees. And as it relates to the committee that I serve as the ranking member on, there's a lot of area. The previous fiscal note, you go in and you say, well, this goes into state gov fi and this goes into state gov fi. And I will, before I close, I will share with you a conversation that I had with a number of our new members. And I said, this place is all about process. And I am an institutionalist, and I know a lot of you are as well. We should embrace process. We should say that we will not do something that outkicks our coverage on a bill like this. We should say to the public in the state of Minnesota that while we understand that this may be a priority bill for you, we are going to wait until we have an informed vote before us. We don't know. All of the chairs that have yielded just now have said the same thing. I don't know. I don't know what the fiscal note will say. Well, I think it's reasonably easy to ascertain what the fiscal note will say because the last one is pretty close. My guess is it will be more due to inflation and more because the scope has possibly expanded. But folks, this is the last one. It's available online. It's really interesting. It's a great read as to what happens when you write a bill that spends a lot of money. I guess my question that I will put to all of you before I sit down is, are you willing to tell Minnesota that you don't really feel encumbered by the fiscal implications of a bill, that you're just willing to pass it out? This is a great piece of information. We're waiting for it. What I will also tell you is that when I came in as a freshman, we waited on fiscal notes, and the times that we didn't, many of the members that are here in the chamber now were in the minority. One in particular, Representative Nelson, my friend over there, would bring up, well, where's the fiscal note? We don't have a fiscal note. And our chairs would say, well, we'll hold the bill until we have the fiscal note. So custom and usage would tell us that we should wait for the fiscal note. Members, this is an easy thing. Minnesotans are watching, and they're disappointed by the fact that we are in, or well, you are in such a rush that you don't want to do something as simple as make an informed vote. Because when we vote on things, when I vote on something, since I can't question other people's voting motives, when I vote on something, I'm saying I'm voting for this because I feel like it's a good bill, or I'm voting against this thing because I feel that I don't have either enough information or I'm opposed to the content of the bill. I couldn't make either of those informed decisions because I don't know what the fiscal impact is. That's an important conversation that we should be having in committee. And I will tell you, Madam Chair, my members on the committee, and I'm committing this to them and I'm not going to look at them because they're going to hate what I'm about to say, we'll come back at night. We'll go until midnight if we have to, just to talk about the implications of this bill for state government finance. This is important. Please don't trivialize this. Please don't look down at the floor and think, well, Nash will shut up eventually. But this is important. So important that a person that lives in my district who is on your side of the aisle agreed with my assessment, and they were fairly disappointed that this is moving forward the way it is. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There seems to be a tendency to want to discuss the merits of particular bills when we're talking about re-referrals, so I just want to remind folks that we are only talking about moving a bill from one committee to the other to continue the committee process, and to reassure everyone that when the bill comes back to the floor, there will be lots and lots of time on third reading to have debates on the merits of the bill. We have in front of us a bill that's been around for a long time. I understand a lot of you mentioned that you've read the fiscal notes from previous sessions, and so you have a pretty good understanding for the overall framework of the bill. It has additional committee stops. Human Services is where it's going next. Commerce Committee will be the stop after that, and Ways and Means will follow that. The bill will not move out of Ways and Means without a fiscal note. And so when the bill comes to the floor, there will be a fiscal note. you all will have plenty of time to debate the merits of the bill with a full fiscal note in front of you, and so I would urge members to vote no. Thank you.
The member from Stearns, the maker of the motion, Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. Well, I appreciate what the majority leader said, that we would have plenty of time to debate this bill in the future stops and on the floor. What we have seen so far in this session is that when we get to the floor, or even in committee, our amendments are rarely, if never, taken. We have got to do our work in the committee, as has been the past practice in this body for decades. You've heard from our leads. You have heard from workforce development, judiciary finance, children and families, labor and industry, state government finance, asking if the chairs would just consider taking it back and referring it back to the committee. We were looking for maybe one assurance that we did not get in this place this afternoon. In fact, it actually supported what we heard from the chairs. It supported our reason for wanting a fiscal note, because what we heard from many of the chairs was we had no idea what the fiscal note is going to say. That is exactly why we need to refer this bill back to the committees, wait on the fiscal note, see what it says, determine if it is even going to be affordable for Minnesotans, employers and employees, and make the best decision before this actually would go into law. So, Madam Speaker, members, I would ask that you would vote no on adopting this committee report and send it back to where it needs to go. Thank you.
Members, a yes or a green vote is a vote to adopt the committee report of House File 2. A no or a red vote is a vote to not adopt the committee report on House File 2. The clerk will take the roll. Will the clerk please call the name of the member who's participating remotely?
Egbadje.
Okay, go ahead.
Egbadje votes yes.
Egbadje votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 60 nays, the report is adopted.